Also in the UK, King Charles III has made his youngest brother, Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh. The title was last held by their father, Prince Philip, from 1947 until his death in 2021.
Prince Edward's lawyers have officially confirmed that King Charles has been holding assets for years that legally, rightfully, and provably belong to his youngest brother.
Prince Edward's lawyers have just dropped a quiet bombshell. They claim that King Charles III has been holding assets for years, assets that legally, verifiably, belong to his youngest brother. And if that's true, this isn't just family tension, this is a royal-level dispute with serious consequences. Because the British monarchy has survived almost everything: the shock of abdications, the strain of public divorces, relentless scandals, and the devastating loss of Princess Diana. Time and again, the institution held its ground, even when the pressure should have broken it. But what's unfolding now feels different. Behind palace walls, something far more controlled and far more dangerous is taking shape. Prince Edward's legal team hasn't made noise, they've made moves. Quiet ones, precise ones, the kind that don't leak unless they're meant to. And what they've reportedly uncovered could trigger the most explosive inheritance clash the modern royal family has ever faced. We're talking sealed wills, private letters never meant to be seen, estates valued in the hundreds of millions, and for the first time, a royal who seems ready to stop protecting the family image and start fighting for what's his. The palace? They're not just concerned, they're blindsided, because this isn't the story they wanted out. So how did it get this far? To understand that, you need to look at the man at the center of it all, Prince Edward, Duke of Edinburgh. For most of his life, Edward has stayed out of the spotlight by design. The youngest son of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, he grew up in the shadow of bigger, louder royal figures, his older brother, the future king, and siblings who constantly dominated headlines. Edward chose a different path: quiet, careful, almost invisible. But now, he may be stepping into the spotlight for the one reason that could shake the monarchy to its core: inheritance. While his brothers were constantly making headlines, Edward stayed mostly out of sight. There was no chaos, no ongoing drama, just quiet, steady choices. Instead of chasing attention, he built a small TV production company, then married Sophie Rhys-Jones in 1999 without turning it into a huge public spectacle. No scandals followed, no desperate grabs for attention, just calm, consistent work. He carried out royal duties without making noise, without complaining, and without becoming part of the usual dramatic stories tied to the family. For a long time, the media barely mentioned him unless there was nothing else to report. Some observers even called him forgettable. It sounded harsh, but the label stuck. And now, that same image, quiet, reliable, overlooked, is exactly why this moment feels so different. Because the title he holds today, Duke of Edinburgh, is not just a ceremonial name, it's far more than that. Behind it sits a deep web of history, legal rules, property rights, and long-standing agreements that were set in place long before King Charles III ever took the throne. When Queen Elizabeth II passed away on September 8, 2022, it didn't just mark the end of an era, it triggered a major reshuffle of titles, power, and royal wealth. But during that transition, something unexpected began to unfold. According to sources, Edward's legal team spent the past year digging through old documents, letters patent, trust papers, and succession laws connected to key estates and financial interests. These are the same assets that King Charles III reportedly moved quickly to bring under his control through structures like the Crown Estate and the Duchy of Lancaster after the Queen's death. But what Edward's lawyers found didn't just raise questions, it shook things up. To understand why, you have to go back to the history of the Duke of Edinburgh title itself. This isn't just tradition, it's built on layers of legal meaning. Over centuries, the title has been created, lost, and recreated multiple times, each version carrying its own legal weight. The most recent version was established in 1947, when King George VI gave the title to Philip Mountbatten just before he married Princess Elizabeth. This wasn't just symbolic, it came with carefully written legal backing designed to last. When Prince Philip died in April 2021, the title didn't simply pass on like a normal inheritance. Instead, it returned to the crown in a state known as abeyance, waiting for the next decision. That's standard royal practice for titles connected to a monarch's spouse. Queen Elizabeth II held on to it, but she already had a plan. For years, it had been understood within royal circles that Edward would eventually receive it. Then, during her Platinum Jubilee in 2022, she made it official. Edward and Sophie became the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, a move many saw as both personal and symbolic, honoring Prince Philip's legacy. But here's where things take a serious turn. This title isn't just about honor, it carries specific legal conditions. Hidden within the original 1947 documents and reinforced over time are detailed provisions tied to property rights, financial interests, and estate connections. These are not loose traditions, they are written legal terms. And according to Edward's legal team, those terms may still fully apply today. Under certain interpretations of English property law, these rights don't disappear, they travel with the title. In simple terms, whoever holds the dukedom could also have claims connected to those original agreements. That's where the tension begins. After Queen Elizabeth passed away, King Charles III reportedly acted quickly to bring royal assets under tighter control. But Edward's lawyers now suggest those decisions may have been made too fast, possibly without fully considering the legal weight of earlier agreements tied to the title. And that leads directly to the heart of the matter, what they actually uncovered. Because when the Queen died, two of the most famous royal properties, Balmoral in Scotland and Sandringham and Norfolk, did not transfer the way many people think. Unlike Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, which belong to the Crown, Balmoral and Sandringham are privately owned estates. Balmoral was purchased by Prince Albert in 1852, and Sandringham was later acquired by the future King Edward VII. Since then, both have been treated as personal property of the monarch, not state assets, and that changes everything. Private property follows very different legal rules. These estates can carry conditions, obligations, and long-standing agreements that don't simply disappear when ownership changes. Instead, those conditions can remain in place, quietly shaping who has rights to what long after the original documents were signed. This detail is crucial. Queen Elizabeth II's will is sealed, so the public can't see it. But not everything is hidden. Some legal papers linked to the Duke of Edinburgh title are still accessible, and that's where things get serious. Reports say Prince Edward's lawyers found wording in those documents that gives clear rights to whoever holds that title. These rights may include income from certain properties and even future claims on parts of the estate. Put simply, when the title was created for Edward, it may have come with real legal benefits, and that changes everything. Those benefits can't just be ignored or absorbed into wider royal plans without dealing with his legal position first. This isn't family drama, it's law. These terms were written by lawyers and meant to be followed, no matter who is in charge. After becoming king, King Charles III made major decisions about royal estates, but those moves may not have fully considered Edward's rights. That's the problem. Edward's team isn't speaking emotionally, they're pointing to written and forcible claims, and when that message reached the palace, it reportedly didn't go down well. The usual royal response followed. Silence, then quiet talks. Behind the scenes, lawyers from both sides have been in serious discussions. At the same time, the palace has been reviewing the law privately, something institutions only do when there's real risk. The timing matters. Edward received the title in 2022, soon after the Queen died and Charles took over. Estate decisions were made quickly. Later, Edward's lawyers reviewed everything and raised concerns. Since then, observers have noticed a shift, fewer relaxed public moments, more careful interactions. Even palace messaging has been unusually cautious, as if saying too much could cause legal trouble. And here's the big question, what is actually at stake? Take Sandringham Estate, around 20,000 acres of land, farms and rental properties worth tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars. Then there's Balmoral Castle, even larger, with vast land and valuable assets. Beyond land, there are trusts, income streams, and long-standing financial rights tied to titles. The Duke of Edinburgh title, given its unique setup, could carry serious financial weight. We're not talking about small sums. This could mean tens of millions in value. Edward isn't challenging the throne. He's not trying to compete with the king. His argument is simple. Certain legal rights were attached to his title, and they must be respected. At its core, this comes down to one thing: whether those rights are legally binding even after control of the estates changed. This isn't just someone venting or making noise. What's happening here is serious. Lawyers have spent years digging through records, checking every detail, and building a case backed by real evidence. And the palace's quiet response? That silence says a lot. They know this matters. But this isn't just about a family issue. It points to something bigger. Today, powerful institutions are under more pressure than ever to be open and accountable. For a long time, the monarchy relied on tradition and public trust to keep things behind closed doors. That approach worked until recently. Things started to shift during the Harry and Meghan period. People began questioning more. They stopped assuming everything inside the palace was always fair or handled perfectly. The old idea, "don't question royal matters," is fading. Now, Prince Edward's team steps in. No interviews, no emotional speeches, just documents, legal arguments, and clear claims based on property law. And the message is simple but powerful. The monarchy is not above the law. Even a king must follow legal agreements. No matter how historic the institution is, it can't just take or control what legally belongs to someone else without consequences. That's why experts are paying attention. This could go far beyond Edward himself. It raises questions about how royal assets are managed and whether those systems still hold up today. If the lawyers are right, the issue isn't just one dispute. It could mean the system has cracks. So what happens next? There are three likely outcomes. First, a quiet resolution. Everything gets settled privately. Adjustments are made, agreements updated, and both sides move on. The public hears very little, just polished statements about unity. This is usually how the monarchy handles problems. But even then, it would still mean something important. Edward's case was strong enough that it couldn't be ignored. Second, things could escalate into a legal battle. If neither side backs down, this could end up in court. That would be rare and very public. It could expose documents the palace has always kept hidden. And here's the key point: the law doesn't bend for royalty. That's what makes this option so serious, even if it's less likely. Third, and perhaps most impactful, is long-term change. Even if this ends quietly, it could trigger a deeper review of how royal assets are handled. Clearer rules, stronger legal structures, maybe even outside oversight. In extreme cases, it could draw political attention if large sums of money are involved. All of this comes from one central fact. Edward's legal rights appear to be real, documented, and enforceable, yet someone at the highest level may have acted like they weren't. Now the consequences are unfolding. What makes this even striking is who's involved. Prince Edward has always been the quiet one, the steady figure who stayed out of drama. No scandals, no headlines, just consistency. But this move is different. It's not loud or emotional. It's precise. He brought in legal experts, had them review everything, and they came back with a clear conclusion. His claims are valid. And that's where things stand, right at a point the royal family rarely faces: uncertainty. Because no matter how this is handled behind the scenes, one thing is already clear: a line has been crossed. Not publicly, not dramatically, but legally. For generations, the monarchy operated on tradition and unspoken agreements. Decisions were accepted without challenge, but that world is changing. Now, everything is being examined more closely: legal rights, financial accountability, documented proof. And that shift changes how power works inside the palace. If this ends quietly, it still leaves a mark. It means something had to be fixed, something had to be acknowledged. If it escalates, the impact could be even bigger, changing how people see the monarchy and increasing public scrutiny. But perhaps the biggest takeaway is this: Prince Edward didn't need drama to make an impact. He didn't go public or create headlines. He simply presented facts, backed by law, and forced the system to respond. And that's what makes this moment different. Because in the end, this isn't just about money or property. It's about what happens when long-standing tradition meets clear legal limits, and those limits hold. The monarchy may prefer silence and control, but this situation shows that even the most controlled system can be challenged when the evidence says otherwise. And now that message is out, and it's not going away.